Thanks very much, Diane. Yeah, last year's talk was a lot of fun. I'm going to, because it was fun and because people really responded to it, I did include some elements of that talk this time around too. So let's see, okay, got the image up there. So I took a broad approach here. I think one thought here, when people hear non-prescription approaches, they think of supplements or over-the-counter things. I took a broader approach than that, and I hope you like it. I have no disclosures here. But I think the place to start when you are thinking about your sort of care, your child's care, your own care overall, is what are you trying to achieve? And the big goal here for all the things that we do in healthcare and all the things that we aspire to do as individuals in raising our families and taking care of our kids and our loved ones is to build a good life. And that is not just sort of as we say, not just adding years to life, but adding the life to years. So making it good time and and quality time. So let me one sec here. Okay. All right. So what is the secret to that good life that we're all chasing here? Is it about money? Is it about being famous and powerful? Is it about just being healthy? Is it about just being lucky? So I'll tell you what it's not about. It's not about living forever at any cost. This is, I would offer this. This is a somewhat famous and sometimes infamous person in Silicon Valley. This is a biotech CEO whose name, it's okay sharing his name. This is what he does. He's sort of puts himself in the public space, but his goal is to live forever. His name's Brian Johnson. There's a lot of information on him. He's got this really over the top, extreme regimen. He takes over 100 supplements every day. He has every hour of his day regimented. His life is focused solely on optimizing. It's very much how an engineer would approach this problem. And it is very, very, from the outsider's perspective, from my perspective, it really misses the point. Whereas one could be focusing on kind of big picture things, he's really focusing on things on kind of a very small scale, and there's a term, missing the forest for the trees. He's really focused on the details and missing the big picture. So the lesson here, I would say, is, a good life does not come in a pill. You're not going to find it there. You're really going to need to find this in a much broader approach. And I don't see this very often, but just to say it out loud, don't let this obsessive pursuit of health distract you from the bigger picture, the rest of life that is there to enjoy. Okay, so what do we know about health and longevity? And so this does tie in, for those of you who were there or missed last year's talk, this does tie in. I'm going to repeat a little bit of last year's talk here. And I'm going to highlight a couple of the biggest, most interesting studies on health and longevity. And one of the original longitudinal studies, and that's a study where people are followed over a long period of time and they're measured along the way. And then you learn what was good for you, what was bad for you in terms of staying alive, staying healthy, staying happy, and so on. It was called the Framingham study. Framingham is the town in Massachusetts where the study was really centered. This began in the late 40s, and it continues to this day. And it's one of the kind of preeminent studies of this kind. This is where we learned that high blood pressure is bad for you, high cholesterol is dangerous. Smoking, one of the places we learned that smoking is very bad for you, but this is one of the studies that proved all of this. And it really was responsible, the lessons learned here were really responsible for much of what we know of as preventive health care around the world. moving into kind of more broader-based view, there is an increasing interest in communities that just have a whole bunch of people that live a long time, and understanding what it is that makes those communities special. Why are those people living so long? I would say that's one of the most interesting places right now to read about. Those are some really interesting places to read about. And you'll see a theme here as I go through, but there are a couple of themes that will really pop out, and those are what I'll draw your attention to. But this is the Okinawa Centenarian Study. So Okinawa is an island in the South Pacific, and it is full of people who are over 100. And so it's been a source of great interest to people in sociology and health and wellness to understand why it is that these people are living so well and so long. The takeaways from some of these findings are that they have a diet that's it's not high in calories, it's a modest intake, it's very rich in vegetables, so fruits and vegetables. They have a lot of physical activity, and they spend a lot of time with other people, not online, in real life with other people. And that is probably the prevailing theme across these studies: time with people in real life. Okay, this is a big part of life in these long-lived communities. Now, if you're wondering about diet, what should I eat? What should I avoid? The best model we have is the Mediterranean diet, and this diet is drawn from a similar observation that people in the Mediterranean region live very long lives despite doing all these ill-advised things like smoking and eating lots of croissants and having lots of butter. So what is it that is happening there? And so the elements of the Mediterranean diet have been studied extensively, and they are, not surprisingly, it is a diet that is full of whole foods, meaning foods that are not ground up and separated into their constituent parts and then repackaged. They are foods that you recognize sitting on the table. That's an apple. That's a potato. That's kale. The things that you can see from a distance. That is whole food. The less processed food, the food, the better. Generally, things that come in a plastic bag are not part of a Mediterranean diet. And so it's high in healthy fats and oils. So healthy fats are non-saturated fats. So fatty fish is kind of a big part of it. So salmon, sardines, these kinds of things. It is the sources of protein are not, so specifically not high in red meat. Red meat actually is as good as it tastes on the occasion. It really is actually not good for us. There are elements in red meat. It's probably in particular the saturated fat and some of the high iron levels that are probably not healthy for us on average, in moderation, right? But I'm sorry to break it to you that steak and hamburger are not as good for you as you might wish. And it's lower in sweets, so not a lot of sugars and sweets. This has been studied extensively. This one has been studied in randomized controlled trials, which is the gold standard, and has been proven effective at extending life and making life healthier and better. So another study, the 90+ study. This is a study that is based in a community in Southern California. This is a community that is, I think it's Seventh-day Adventist, I believe is the community. And they're part of the tenets of this community are actually, I think it's a no alcohol, no smoking tenet. So that is part of the background for this community. But in addition to that, this, in part because they have this very strong religious community, these religious bonds, but they need not be religious. They need to be bonds just that bring you together with other people. These social, this kind of platform for engaging with other people is really important. So having, there's a famous sociologist named Robert Putnam who published a famous book called Bowling Alone that described America's kind of gradual loss of social institutions And the famous observation he used was going to a bowling alley in the 1950s and 60s and 70s. There would be tons of bowling leagues. People would be gathering together with friends, socializing, sitting in these little tables behind. Most of us have been to a bowling alley, sitting with our friends, chatting between our turns at the bowling. And you go to a bowling alley now, people are literally, the leagues are gone. Some people are still bowling, but they're by themselves. And this was his observation that this has been happening across institutions in America and most other parts of the world, that these places and these things that used to bring us together have dwindled. They've been replaced by other things, and among the other things would be lots of digital entertainment, lots of time on our phones, lots of time maybe interacting in other ways. But finding, he has I think his new book is called Join or Die or something like that. But they've studied this. Simply joining an organization, volunteering, doing something like this is strongly associated with a longer life. So just the idea here is be engaged in the real world, commit yourself to something that draws you into it, and commit yourself to something that draws you into people who might be a little bit different than you. In some ways, whatever ways you might imagine, but draws you in with other people. That is very, very, very good for your health. Okay. The Harvard study of adult development. So this is a really interesting study. Among it, so this began with sort of following a group of individuals who were Harvard students at the time and following them, I think it was several hundred, following them over decades and decades of time. So JFK was famously a member of this study originally, and so of others, and so it follows people over time, how long they live, how good their lives are they happy, are they not, are they married, are they divorced, et cetera. And the big takeaway, probably the most famous takeaway from this study, is that this thing that determined not just how long people lived, but how happy they were, was the strength of their social bonds. So how strong were their bonds with other people, be it family, be it friends. This was the thing, much to the study authors' surprise. I mean, it's not really what they were expecting to find. They were thinking it was going to be, genetics or money or something like that. And those things obviously play a role. But of the things we have control over, this is the big takeaway here. Okay. Last one here, the Blue Zone Project. How many people have heard of the Blue Zones? So these are areas of the world that somebody put up a map on a wall long ago, and they started marking all the areas in the world where communities where people lived a very long time. And they marked them with a blue marker. And so hence the name, the Blue Zones. But this alludes to this a qualitative study. It's a very entertaining study. If you have Netflix, you can watch, you can get this in video form if you like. There's also a wonderful book on it. It's written and collected primarily by a guy named Dan Buettner. He's a very entertaining person. I recommend his Netflix show. I think his Netflix show is called like Live to 100 or something like that. It's a series, very, very entertainingly done. But he essentially tried to cultivate wisdom from these communities. This is not scientifically rigorous, but it does echo what we're seeing in other areas of scientific study. And I find it just to be a very accessible and easy way to engage with the kind of the natural wisdom of successful communities. And I think that's kind of a neat way to look at the world as a place of many experiments, and some of the experiments are working really well and some are not. Right now in American society, we're really struggling with a lot of what happens in our health and happiness. Our experiment is not going well at this moment, but in other areas of the world it really is going well. And I think trying to learn from that and understand what is it that makes other communities successful is good. And his takeaways were very similar to the things I've been talking about here. I just like this one because it's another way, if you want to explore this a little further, it's a very engaging way to find this. Okay, so all of these, I will say, all of these things have begun to change the way especially younger generations in healthcare. There's still old people. I'm getting to be an old person myself here, so I'm at the bridge of this, but the older generations still have a more traditional view, but I would say particularly younger generations are really bringing this into practice more and more, where there is a sense that, the life we're seeking, and also as physicians, the life we are prescribing or trying to create, help our families cultivate, and as family members and individuals, the lives we are trying to provide for our children and for other family members is bigger than we used to think. So we used to be focused on, okay, where is the problem? Show me the problem, I will solve it, kind of that engineering approach, right? Where is the fracture? I will mend the fracture. We are now, I think, looking more at this of like, okay, what is it that helps people flourish? I really like this is a kind of a new term that's in vogue of human flourishing. And I think it's a wonderful way to think about approach to health. What is it that helps us flourish? And that is a very broad take on things. What does it make us healthy? What is it that makes us happy? How is it that we live long lives? How is it we live good lives? I recommend taking that approach with you and your loved ones and not focusing so much on a problem. I have pain here, I have stiffness here, I can't do this thing, but focusing on the bigger picture here and thinking, okay, well, there are things I can and can't do, but what do I have control over? There are things I cannot control. What things can I control? One of the big hard lessons I feel as I'm growing older and as I'm seeing more complex problems is just trying to distinguish the things I can control from the things I cannot control. And the hard part is letting go more of the things I cannot control and focusing more on trying to understand and change the things I do have control over. Now that distinction in and of itself is hard. There are sometimes it just that view gets blurry. What is it that I really do have control over? And sometimes it's less than I think. Certainly as a parent, it feels that way. Among these categories, I'll just take a broad approach here, but let's walk through these. So, okay, we'll take my talk heading here into a little detail. So the good stuff. What's the low-hanging fruit? The stuff that's like has an evidence base, that is safe, really no side effects, that like is good for everybody, whether you have a chronic condition or not. Forming good habits. So I'll say you already know about forming good habits, not smoking. I would say our take on alcohol has come a long way. Alcohol, I think, serves a good social function. It helps us socialize, helps break down some social barriers. It does come at a small cost to health. I don't recommend over-fixating on alcohol as a terrible, terrible thing, but it does appear that the less alcohol you drink, the better it is for your health. I do think there are good exceptions for that, and if it's in a social setting, I do think it actually has some value. Physical activity, that whatever way you can stay physically active is great. I know that among us, we all have different levels of physical abilities, but focusing on the things we can control, the things we can do is really what we want to go for. But moving is important. Diet, so there's a great line that I always like. When you think about what should I eat, the answer is not too much, mostly plants, and sorry, let me rephrase that. It's real food, not too much, mostly plants. So in other words, whole foods, not overindulging, and try to. And I just the reason mostly plants is because actually that is where the best evidence for the more plants and vegetables you get in your diet, that is better for you. Again, meat is allowable. It's just not shouldn't be this source of things. So, okay. So what is the stuff that's sorry, I didn't touch on the emerging knowledge here. So, mindset. So this is we all kind of come into life with different natural set points for how we look. Some of us are optimists. Some of us are pragmatists. Some of us are pessimists, and we all run across that gamut somewhere. We may feel like those are things we don't control. You can change your mindset. However old and grumpy you might feel today, you might say, this is just the way I am. Yes, that may be the way you are today. That is not the way. It's not the mindset you need to keep. It is not a mindset that's frankly good for you. Trying to cultivate a more positive mindset, particularly one that's open to new ideas, open to new experiences, open to new people. That is the one you want to try to cultivate. I'll mention nature a couple more times here, but I really like this take here too because I love being outdoors. I grew up in a forested area. And there's a really interesting, rich body of evidence here suggesting how that implies that exposure to nature, direct exposure in nature, time in nature, is good for it interacts with our body on a molecular level, which interests the scientists. So spending time in a forest, the trees in particular release chemicals, pheromones essentially, that our bodies interact with. Our bodies receive these. It has effects on specific aspects of our immune system that are anti-tumor. I'm not putting out any big claims here, but I'm saying these are aspects that do involve protecting us against tumors, against autoimmune diseases. The forest and nature expose us to healthy, diverse elements of the microbiome. Even the colors green and the color blue are good. They feed into our mind and brain in ways that I wouldn't have believed had they not been studied. But there's a surprising amount of evidence here, and if you're interested, I recommend sort of delving into this. I think it's a really interesting emerging area that has, short of falling off a cliff, if you're out hiking in a dangerous area, really the side effects here are minimal. And I think this is a really neat area. If you live close to nature or even a park, this is a neat way to access things. So big proponent of this one myself. And in my family, we've just taken up, my brother's here in the audience. He came out, he was so interested in hearing this talk, he drove all the way down here from Michigan to see it. But we've taken up trail running, so we love to go out and run in the forest, and as we did as kids, and it brings us back to our youth. Social connections, again, I've mentioned this, but this is one that you have a choice to cultivate these. Sometimes it does require a change in mindset, a change in habits, but it's super important. So I love this line, join or die. Find something to commit yourself to. The reason that commitment matters is because it drags you out of your comfort zone. If you've told somebody you're going to be somewhere, if you've ever exercising with a group, you've got group accountability. Same is true of socializing. Commit to something. Even if it feels a little bit like work, volunteering, for some of us may feel like, I got to go do this. It's actually good for your health. So getting out, volunteering in your local community, and it's good for the world. It really is good for your community. It's good for others. This is one of these wonderful non-zero sum, meaning it's everybody benefits from it. There's no, zero sum is I win, you lose, or you win, I lose. Non-zero sum is we both win. So volunteering, being active socially is actually really good for everybody. It's one of the reasons that humans dominate the world. We dominate the world because we are so social and we thrive this way. This is what makes humans special. It's what makes us successful. It is really a part of what makes us unique. So, okay. So the bad here. This is not demonizing these. I'm just giving you some pitfalls. So I think I'm going to leave some supplement stuff to some of the questions. I will touch on it briefly here, but in general, my suggestion to supplements here is, if you're looking for nutritional supplements, try and get it through your diet. Try and get it through the original food, the foods you originally find it in. If you're looking for magnesium, try and get it through bell peppers or some healthy thing. I do think there's a place for supplements, and I can touch on that. At the end, I can give you my very short list of recommended supplements for general use, if you like. But I do think that supplements can be hazardous. I showed you the very extreme example at the beginning of Brian Johnson's approach that is clearly probably hazardous to him in some ways that he doesn't know yet. He's running his own experiment, but in moderation, I think some carefully selected supplements can be okay. There are some things that are hard to get in the diet that maybe you can get a little extra boost from. So avoiding dietary extremism. So that can be overly restrictive without evidence, social isolation you want to avoid, financial strain, so spending too much money on these supplements. So I think there is a sense that there is something must be better than nothing. So if I take a few more supplements, clearly that's going to be better for my health. There are actually good examples of that being exactly the opposite, that certain supplements actually can be hazardous to your health. And I'm just adding a note of caution here on supplements. And one of the reasons that some supplements and other things can be hazardous to your health, just like extra prescriptions can sometimes be hazardous to your health, is for supplements, there is no regulated oversight. So their supplements are really, they can put many different things in those supplements that are listed on the bottle. And sometimes the things that are listed on the bottle are not always in the supplement. So it is really a buyer beware space. The reason it is this way is ancient historical stuff and US regulation. It goes back decades. But the supplement industry was given free rein in a lot of areas here. So there is a lot of hazards in this space. The doses can vary highly, so you might think you're getting a small dose, you're getting a huge dose, and vice versa, where you think but the dosing in the supplements is notoriously inaccurate. So whatever you think you're getting the supplement, I would plus or minus 200%, I would say, is your, so it could be widely variable. It's very, very, very highly variable. It's just not regulated. So they're kind of on their word to put into the dose they say and the dose they want. Yes. So here are some red flags for supplements and other more extreme things. So anything advertising itself is a miracle cure. I promise you, if it's saying it is, I promise it's not. So that is a red flag. I would write that one off immediately. That is somebody selling snake oil in a new bottle. Somebody offering personal testimonials. This works so well for me. That is the lowest quality evidence we have. It's not zero value, but it's also somebody who's probably just being paid for that, and so on. Social media influencers, I don't need to go into this too far, but I find no value, zero value in their take on something. So their goal is to get you to watch their channel, to click on their products, period. So I would not put any stake in social media influencers. Finding that data yourself I recommend really doing a little bit of original research if you're really looking, talking to your provider about what supplements might work. Supplements that say, this is something Big Pharma doesn't want you to know. There's a famous conspiracy theory that some of you may have heard that the government has a cure to cancer, but they don't want you to know about it. They're not telling you about it because biotech is paying them to keep it secret. I promise that is not true. But there is an idea here that there are some things that are being hidden from us intentionally. I almost wish that were true because that means we could jailbreak that and then save the world, and it just is not true. So it's not going to happen. And I just mostly hear a lot of it is a cost. So these things can get really expensive. And then the ugly stuff that gets really dangerous is trying things like flying to exotic places where they will do things that they won't do in the U.S. There's a reason in many cases that they're not doing that in the U.S. and that it's dangerous and not regulated, and I strongly recommend against those kinds of experiments. Yeah, okay, we're repeating a little bit of it here. So I do recommend discussing supplements with the medical team. There are some that I recommend, and I can touch on those at the end. Yeah, a little bit of your own research. I know that's a tricky thing because the internet is so full of various recommendations, but cultivating a way to establish your own evidence base is good. I do think that some of the new AI models, like ChatGPT, I use Claude. These can be useful places to aggregate evidence in a way that's I find it's a little easier to use than just old-fashioned Google, but still lots of caveats apply. They can invent things, they can misconstrue things even there, not intentionally, but it happens. So here are some just practical tips for you. So where do you want to start if you're starting from scratch here? My top advice is choose real life over digital life. Just be in the world, be part of it. The digital life is not real, and it literally is not. There really is very little to say it's good for our health. In fact, most of it says it's bad for our health. So be in the real world. And then when you're in the real world, spend that time wisely. Spend it with other people. Spend it in nature. Spend it relaxing. Reading a book. It doesn't have to be anything too fancy, but be present. Spend your money carefully. Spend it on experiences rather than things. Spend it on carefully identify one or two carefully identified supplements rather than the kitchen sink supplement, the everything bagel supplement that has everything in it. And then eat well together. Eat your meals with other people. I always tease my coworkers in my office when they're eating alone, because we're always eating alone. We're all like working like dogs all day, and we're just trying to get things done, and we're sitting at our desk, and I say, you're going to die early. You're eating alone. And there is actually evidence to say that eating alone is really bad for your health. So I try to practice that one more, but eat with other people, eat with your family, eat with your friends. You'll eat less, you'll eat healthier sometimes. And then build from there. Evaluate your supplements with your community. I do find there's a lot of wisdom sometimes in the patient community what supplements are really working. I don't discredit those things. I actually seek them out from some of my patients and families, but I try to weigh them against some of the evidence base. Connect with other families. This is, you are all here. You're already doing that. But there are a whole bunch of people out there that are not kind of, for various reasons, for financial, for logistical, but sometimes fear, not reaching out to connect. And I wish I could help them understand what they're missing by not being here to connect. And find simple ways to be out in nature regularly. All right, some closing thoughts here. So combining the insights of modern medicine, of the emerging therapies, this is a really exciting time for rare disease communities with emerging genetic treatments and new insights. We have real medicines for some of the communities now that we didn't have before that we really do think impact disease. And but I would add to that these like timeless principles of this huge human experiment we're running. There are communities all over the world that have figured things out that we should listen to and we should draw from, and that's mostly it's connection, it's movement, it's time in nature, it's finding your sense of purpose. All those things, they're really, really important to a good life. That doesn't come in pill form, unfortunately. That comes with being part of the real world. So just some questions. I'll close on this for reflection here. So what does a good life look like for your family, for you, for your kids? What area do you think needs the most attention? Is it your relationships? Is it your physical activity? Is it your diet? Is it time in nature? And then, what supplements do you want to add to that? I'm going to stop there because that's my last slide, and I'm going to take questions. I see one question here. Do we have a mic? Let's see. Oh, there's a mic right behind you if you don't mind.
Thanks for that. Really informative. Where are we at with VR, virtual reality, and physical exercise?
Oh, boy, I wasn't prepared. That's an interesting one. Tell me more. Is there one mode you're thinking of? Because I think you might have something specific in mind. Tell me.
So I'm a proponent of it. I've just found benefits, and I'm not using it for weight, but for physical mobility and cardio. I use Supernatural. I can see the positive and negative that's not getting out to nature, but I mean, I break a sweat, I feel better.
Can you, actually, I don't know, maybe tell us more about what you're doing?
So I use Meta, the Facebook one. There's other choices, but that was a good bang for the buck financially. And it's $99 a year, and it's great. You know?
So there are applications that get you to do, well, like, what does the VR do? What is it?
There's one called Supernatural.
Okay.
And you can look at it, and it's either boxing, which is actually really hard, or you kind of have bats. And I just kind of wondered where the science is on that. My family thinks I'm a fruitcake.
So it's I don't have an answer to that one, actually. It sounds really interesting, especially, I do think this is one of these neat areas where if your resources are constrained, like you live in a really remote area or you don't have access to boxing is also dangerous for your head, so doing it with real shadow boxing with a figure seems like a really fun way to do that. I can see some reasons why that might come into play. One of my good friends at Stanford is a VR researcher. I'm gonna ask him a little bit about this next time I see him, but I don't know. It's an interesting thought.
Yes, there's a lot of apps, but I use Supernatural. It just has good graphics.
Okay. Yeah.
It's places in the world that I've actually been, so kind of.
That's cool.
Different ways.
Yeah, I do think there. On that note, I do think I said spend time in the real world, be in the real. I do think that. Screen media or something, it can have a function, right? Like, I love movies. I mean, I love reading books if I have time. They can transport you to another place. They can be part of a kind of a way to relax or a way to sort of engage and unwind from some stressful part of life. I think it's a great, and they can sometimes solve, say, you live in an area that's as flat as anything, and you want to climb some wall that doesn't exist for 1,000 miles from you. Virtual reality might be a neat way to do that. But yeah, it's a good idea. I don't have much experience with it, though. Other questions?
Do you have any recommendations of like a website or somewhere to research what supplements are safe?
Oh boy, that's such a good question. I should have come prepared for that one. I'm open to input from the audience here. I can tell you what supplements I think are sometimes useful generally. Now, there are some that I think can be useful selectively, but that becomes more nuanced. I do think the things that are sometimes hard to get in sufficient quantity in diet or lifestyle might be, there is evidence that a good regular multivitamin can be useful. One of the reasons it's useful is our diet. Some of our diets are more restrictive. I think sometimes this comes into play for little kids especially. So I'm a big proponent of using multivitamins for kids. Because kids, as we know, they can be really picky eaters and they're just not eating certain things. And so sometimes multivitamin fills in the gaps there. Other things that are hard to get, many of us live too much time indoors. And that is, I'll tell you, that's not really what our physiologies have evolved for. Our vitamin D comes from the sun. Our body does respond to certain levels of vitamin D. It does provide a signal to our physiology about what time of year it is, what the landscape is like, what nutrients might be available. So I look at vitamin D as kind of a nutrient signal for the body. It tells the body about its environment. And to that end, it generally looks like most of the things we want are, we want the body to think it's an environment that's like the Mediterranean, full of sunlight and vegetation and fruits and vegetables, a land of plenty. That's what a higher vitamin D level sort of signifies to your body and to your immune system. A low vitamin D signifies typically a more hostile landscape that might be cold, wintertime. It might need to protect itself against more viruses, so it has more, it interacts with the immune system a bit too, so it makes the immune system a bit more aggressive. So sometimes my first recommendation is spend time outside in the sun. At higher latitudes, that's harder. So, and for particularly people with darker skin tones, actually the body is really designed to sort of moderate vitamin D intake. Their skin tones evolved for a different climate. So they in particular need vitamin D supplements to kind of achieve the sun exposure they might have needed. And and omega-3 fatty acids are kind of the, maybe the third one I'd suggest are kind of useful on a wide basis. Everything, the dose is always the poison. So too much and too little of anything. Water is a good example. Too much, too little will kill you. So you want to get the dose right, but generally, in the case of vitamin D, if you want a specific dose, 2,000 units a day, international units a day is okay for most people, and a little bit less for some younger kids. And then for omega-3s, it's like, I think usually the standard supplement bottles offer a reasonable target. So I don't have a website. I should have come with one. I'll try and find one that's useful. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I just wanted to add a little bit to that as well. It is very confusing when it comes to supplements. I'm a pharmacist. My husband's a pharmacist. We get asked this often, and it's confusing. You read even sometimes that your omega-3s, which are healthy, are, depending on where you're getting your omega-3s, can be harmful. So finding somebody that you can trust, whether it be your pharmacist or whether it be a dietitian, find someone you can trust to ask, because they have tools and resources they can find that information from as well. Natural Health Database is what I use. And like you pointed to before earlier in your talk, if it sounds too good to be true, then it probably is, too good to be true. So be mindful of people trying to sell you lots of expensive products for your ailment, and look for something that might, in Canada anyways, things have an NPN, a natural product number, which is also good to look for too.
We'll all be moving to Canada shortly.
Me and my wife are both pretty heavy into supplements. Finding the good doctor is just, how much to take and how much of this and what you need. We got a doctor who just go in there and he said, you've got to take 3 of these this month. And then I go back every month and see him. And plus my wife raises a huge garden. We're outside, I live on a farm. So much better lifestyle, but finding somebody you can trust is, wow. That's huge. She hit it right on the nose. And not Amazon. Yeah, not Amazon or not, the qualities, and we change every month. I get in there, you're really low on this, we got to get this up. And you can't do it yourself. I used to come here, what are you taking, John? I can't do that. What I'm taking might kill you. Yeah. But what I need is something I'm not getting in my diet, and you might be getting tons of it. It's not something you do blindly. You were right on the money there. It can be dangerous, but we both, it's just been amazing with supplements. But if you don't have the right doctor or the right person helping you get the right, it's just.
So it sounds like you have somebody specifically who's helping with supplements. It's your doc, or maybe a naturopath or something who's helping you with it.
He's a chiropractor, and he's massive. He goes massive training in supplements. Yeah. We like standard process. He does mostly standard process. They're pretty regulated, but there's a lot of crap out there.
Yeah.
Standard process, I was kind of curious what companies you like or don't like.
I might call on my pharmacy colleague here to weigh in. Yeah. But there are some more reliable brands. I think it's Nature Made is supposedly a reliable one. Another thing I should have done is maybe come in with a couple of reliable brands to choose from. It is hard to tell from the label if it's a reliable brand or not.
I'm very glad you're here. Yeah. I've been trying to get somebody like you in here for 30 years.
You can thank Diane.
I'm not much
into
Diane's
idea. So
pill pushers, but it's amazing. I'd love to talk to you about my story, but from 9 prescription drugs to none.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah,
And I like the idea of growing your own supplements too. That sounds like a good one, right?
Oh,
Growing, having a garden, a garden is a terrific,
it's like the meat I eat, we eat a lot of wild game. They're running all over the place. It's just, there's so much you can do on diet that, people miss out on. Yeah, very good.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Diane, let me know how we're doing on time, but otherwise I got time for more questions if there's any other questions. Florian, did you have a question?
Big credit to everything you do, and to meet your brother and know about how your family has shaped you and you've shaped them. Just gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I'm asking this out of frank curiosity. So lots of what we deal with here, while you talk about paths to happiness, is about suffering and about hardship, and some of that brings a lot of isolation.
Yeah.
And what I worry about is, as we're talking about happiness, is that we often don't have the language and the vocabulary and the means to, engage with those who are isolated and suffering.
Yeah.
And is there, and sometimes, one runs the risk of sounding like a downer if one addresses dark things. And I don't mean to be a downer, but I do think it's also important to be able to talk about it. So that was my one question, easy one. And then the second is, as you talk about, supplements and evidence and maybe some suggestions, how can families, and patients stand up for science today in a time when it seems so hard? Two questions.
Yeah, those are great. So to start with I'll start with the second one first. So for those of you who are interested in the progress I was showing there is built on, the slides on longevity and wellness and happiness, the Framingham study. It's built on years and years and years of rigorous study. And much of it for the Framingham study did come from the NIH. So this is a time, for those of you who don't know, where Science in America actually is in a really tough spot. It's actually being more regulated than it ever has been, and it's being defunded at a rate it never has been. So now is a moment to speak up and say, listen, we know this is a rare disease community, but if you are in that community, it doesn't feel rare. This is our life. Right now, there is kind of a systemic shift away from rare diseases. If you guys are not aware of that, that's happening right now, and that has a lot of us concerned. So speaking up for your community and for rare disease community in general. For one, there are a lot of human beings here. And two, there is a lot of great insights to be learned from people in these communities that can help people with more common conditions. And we are seeing this happen, but I don't think it's happening yet at a scale where kind of big funders and the general population are really understanding. But rare diseases have real implications for the whole, human project here. And advocating for continued science funding, continued funding for rare diseases, it's a big deal. So simplest way to do that is actually to message your representative in your state Congress and your U.S. Congress. There are websites that help you do that, and just say, listen, I care about scientific funding. My family's affected by this rare disease. It matters to us. This is one of those areas where they really are listening. I have interacted with enough people in Congress where that's what they say. They say among the things I listen to the most, other than the lobbyists who might be at their door, is individuals, and the message they get from their community. You're the ones who are electing them, and they really care. So they'll listen to that. On the dark note, I actually really do appreciate you bringing that up. There is a level of Pollyanna-ishness to what I'm presenting here, because I'm presenting, it's intended, in fact, as a counterpoint to some of, I know one of the things people say about some of the talks here is they say, I love the meetings, I love meeting people, but the talks are really, sometimes they get heavy. This is a counterpoint to that, but I do think that living a good life means confronting the elephants in the rooms. And sometimes that elephant is something imminent, like the passing of a loved one or passing your own mortality. And there are so many different ways to approach that philosophically that I hate to prescribe it. I will offer my own take here, in that I am of the view that certainty about things we know and things we don't, the way, and certainty about the way things are and what we know is a hazard. And that includes certainty about how scary, what happens after we die and so on. I have a lot of openness to the possibilities of spirituality, of, some higher, life after death and so on, that I think it's been very helpful for me. And I grew up Catholic. I no longer identify culturally as Catholic, really, at this point, but it's very special to me. That said, I have a really kind of a very open mindset about how to approach these things. I think that point alone is really useful, because it allows me, I'm open to people's insights on these things, because I know that I don't know it all. That's the one thing I'm pretty sure about. And I think that is a helpful place to start, either whether it's approaching somebody or being somebody in a place where you're, maybe feeling isolated. I think, though, what you're saying is, how do we talk about these things? I think that is the key point, is like, let's start by talking. And that means often having another person there to listen. That's probably the most important part. And we all probably know people who are beyond that point. They are in a place where they are not talking to anybody. And I do know that this is actually a really deeply affecting part of some of the individuals in our community, and they're just not here because of that reason. How to reach them is a really big problem. I don't think I know how to approach that one, but I do think it is one of the elephants in the room here. Is there are people who wind up in states of severe mental distress, severe depression, severe isolation, and how to get them out is really, really hard. That is it's not something I have an easy answer for. But I do think if you know somebody like that, there's a favorite kind of statistic I always used to think of when I would talk to anybody, in this case talking maybe my patient, saying, don't do this, do this, is the average smoker tries to quit about 7 times before they finally do permanently. And I think that's a really good model for, like, you're going to fail, you're going to fail, and then you will succeed. You just so for this person maybe that you're trying to reach, this person you want to bring back into the world, don't give up on them. Keep going. It may feel like, they're just, every time I reach out, they just turn me away. Yeah, maybe the first 7 times. So just try for that 8th time.
I asked for my wife. How do we know what we need for the supplements? Is it blood tests? Is paying attention to yourself? But is there other factors there?
Yeah, I would say it depends on what problem you're trying to solve, probably. And if it is, I guess my first thought is, can you get it without a pill? Can you achieve what you want without a pill, and whether it's prescription or not? So I would try those things first. And the second is, can you get it with a prescription? Only because not because prescribed medicine is always safer, but because prescribed medicine is more regulated and the entity is more known. And the second, if neither of those apply, it's no and no. yeah, then what exactly, it really would depend on the problem. So it really would be a conversation probably with your doc. So for most of us, it's a neurologist or an endocrinologist or maybe a rehab specialist or a chiropractor or something like that. But it's hard. I don't have enough faith in or knowledge, or maybe I should put it another way. There's not enough evidence for most individual supplements to say this one works for spasticity or this one works for headaches. It's actually pretty short world. I do think that now is a time where one can advocate for this. This is one of the things that might be the future NIH might be more open to is actually studying supplements over the counter things, and advocating for that I think is a perfectly reasonable thing. Mostly it's just trying to bring it out of the shadows and put it in a real trial. That's how we will know if things work in the end. Short of that, sometimes we often don't have that data, so we have to. It's kind of best guess, and a little bit of trial and error. Lots of things are trial and error, and if you're working with a doc who can help you monitor side effects and then benefits, I think that's a good place to start. So,
I was going to say for amount, my doctor does muscle testing. Basically, he says, okay, you need 3 of these, 2 of these, and I've been doing this for how many years? 25 years, and it's very accurate.
Yeah.
But you got to know how to read the body, and maybe 1 out of 10 of the guys selling supplements can do it.
Yeah.
You can't just. And for me, you were talking about keeping in that mood, the right mood and stuff, and Medicare puts a boat anchor on you when you need a wheelchair, and boy, if that doesn't depress the heck.
Yeah.
That just ran me down to get something to get you out, get you around, makes you mobile.
Yeah.
My truck is set up. I go out and take off. You can't be running around with a boat anchor around your neck.
Yeah. Right.
My legs don't work, but try to keep up.
Yeah.
I tell everybody I'm blessed, and that's honestly the way I feel. How people get through this without faith, I cannot understand.
Well, that reminds me of a good friend with AMN also said to me once, he said, one of the interesting things about having a visible disability is you actually realize how kind most people are and how much people care. Because he's like, I walked right, there are always a dozen people trying to open the door for me, help me with this. And he's like, if you don't have that, you don't realize that the average person is just willing and interested to trying to help you. That was such a neat observation to me. I thought, that's. I do have a very rosy view of kind of human nature. I do think that the average person is actually a really kind, well-meaning person who wishes good things for other people. Not everyone is that way, but the average person is, and well beyond the average person is that way, and they want to help if they can.
When I was walking,
yeah.
I think I carried my cross mostly in the inside, and then when I got in the chair, everybody is helping, everybody's bending over. It's amazing. And I always say it's kind of blessed to carry your cross on the outside that everybody can see. The people that have it hidden, depression or whatever, boy, they got it rough. You don't see it, and everybody's kind of, I started out with this walking funny, and everybody kind of stood back and said, that guy's drunk. I even had to do breathalyzer at work, it's stupid stuff, it just, they drive you down when your cross is hidden, but when you got it out in the open and everybody sees it, boy, it's amazing what people will do for you. I tease people, I can run over their foot and they'll apologize to me. I feel bad. I get in big crowds with it. That's the nice thing about this chair. I can go into crowds and get around. Medicare wanted to give me this 455-pound boat anchor that I couldn't even get out of the house with. I says, what do you want me to do with this thing? And they said, well, it's yours, you know, take it home. I says, well, I mean, I got a boat anchor, you know, I don't need another one, but you got to get out there, you got to get mobile, and you got to keep going. And boy, otherwise they'll just depress you to death. Yeah. And I've seen that happen so many times with AMN guys. You just got to keep going. You got to. I mean, sometimes it's hard to get out of bed, but, you know, okay. Well, wife pushing me out, it helps a lot, you know.
Yeah. Persistence. That's
persistence, right. Yeah.
I think I'm a little past time, so I should make way for the next speaker. But thanks for the participation, you guys. I appreciate all the input.